Hello everyone and welcome back to part 2 of the React Native Apartments.com clone. So today we're going to be building out a animated list header, and we're also going to implement React Native maps into the app. So without further ado, let's get started. Import animated from React Native, and let's just create an animated view within our screen. So animated.view, and let's add some styles to this view so that we can see it on our screen. So first things first, we need to position it absolutely. Let's set top to 0, right to 0, left to 0. We need to give it a high Z index so that we can see it over our images. So I'm going to set that to 1000. Now let's just set some arbitrary height for right now. So let's set it to 250. And let's set a color to this. So background color will be red. Okay, and let's get rid of this margin and add it to the flat list itself. So go down to styles here and add in that margin horizontal. All right, so the next thing that we need to do is import useState from React. And we need to create two new state variables. We're going to call the first one scroll animation. Wrap this in parentheses. And we'll use state new animated dot value and pass in 0. And then we'll copy and paste that and call this one offset animation. Now let's create another state variable called clamp scrolled. Clamp scroll, and then set clamp scroll and say useState. And within this we need an animated diff clamp, animated dot diff clamp. And within this, we need to say animated.add scroll animation.interpolate. Say input range will be 0 to 1. Output range will be 0 to 1. And extrapolate left will be clamp. Now the second argument for diff clamp needs to be our offset animation. So that should be good there. And then we need two other arguments for our diff clamp here. So the first one is just going to be a 0, and the second will be a 1. And that should be all happy now. Now let's create another variable. We'll call this navbar translate. And this will be equal to clamped scroll dot interpolate, and we'll say input range will be an array of 0 to 250, and this is coming from here. We've got a height of 250. Then we'll say output range will be 0 to negative 250, and extrapolate will be clamp. Now let's create a new function, and let's call it onLayout, and it's going to take an event, and this will be a layout change event, and we need to get the height from the event, so we can use structure here and say event.nativeEvent.layout, and with this height we can then set the clamp scroll, so we can just say set clamped scroll, and we can just actually copy and paste this stuff over. It's just that we need to change this 1 to the height. And now let's assign this to the onLayout prop here for the animated view. And for the styles here, we need to say transform and set this to an array. And within this, we have translate y and assign that the navbar translate. So that should be good for the animated view. We just need to make our flat list animated now. So let's change this to animated.flatlist. And here we need to change the onScroll prop. And we will set this to an animated event. So animated.event, which will take an array and an object at the end. Here we'll say use native driver, set that to true. And within this array, we need to have an object which has the property of native event. For this, we're going to assign an object which has the property of content offset. This is going to be an object which says y, and we're going to assign that to our scroll animation. Okay, now let's say scroll event throttle and set this to 16. And this should be good now. So I'm going to add some more properties here so that we can give it a valid test to make sure that the header will collapse and animate. Alright, so let's go check it out and make sure that it's working. So this is what it looks like. That's the animation scrolling down, scrolling back up. I did notice that we do have some issues that we need to work out, such as whenever you scroll all the way to the bottom and it bounces, this will come back up. So we need to fix that. And we also need to add some padding to the initial content so that we can actually see this first property whenever initially loading. So let's get into that. So go down to your flat list and we need to change some of these props. So for bounces, we want to set that to false. And we also want to say content container style and set that equal to a padding top of 250 and then plus maybe 30. So this 250 represents the height here, and then the additional 30 will just represent extra padding. Now let's just change this to a white background. So we'll use the hex code of FFF and let's go check it out. So this is what it now looks like. This initial padding is a bit extreme, so we could cut back on that. The header no longer comes down whenever we're fully at the bottom. So with those changes made, let's actually create a consistent height for this header. And to do that, let's go into our constants file. So this is some code that I pulled from another project. It's pretty much just saying that we're going to give everything a base height of 160, and then if it's iOS, it'll be 200. And if the Android has a status bar, then we'll assign that to the base height as well. And then here we're just taking into account the platform. So we want to export this as header height. So back here on this screen, let's just search for every instance of 250 and change that to header height. So change this to header height. Header height. And that's going to auto import up here. So make sure that you've got that. And then for this content container style, let's actually do some subtraction here. So header height minus 20. So now let's go and check it out. And this is what it's looking like now. So now let's clean up our code a bit and make this into its own little component. So to do that, let's first create a new component called animated list header. .tsx, and let's export const animated list header. And then let's copy this, rather cut it and then go here and let's return that value. Okay, now here we need to import animated from React Native. We need to import header height. And we need to bring in navbar translate on layout and a few other things. So let's do that. So yeah, we need to bring in these. So cut these over and paste them. Okay, these are dependent upon clamp scroll, set clamp scroll, and then scroll animation and offset animation. And really this is only dependent upon scroll animation, so we can take everything from here except for scroll animation and put it over here. And we're just gonna need to import useState from React. And we need to import layout event change or layout change event. And we are going to need scroll animation as a prop. So we'll pass that in here. Scroll animation. And that will be animated dot value for the type. Okay. Now we just need to import that into our component here. So import animated list header, and let's put it where the previous animated view was. List header, and we'll pass in scroll animation. And now it's working. Okay, so that was a successful refactor. Let's get rid of these unused imports up top. And let's start building out the animated list header. So to get started, let's create a new view and put this view inside of your animated view, and then import that from React Native. And we're going to give this view a margin horizontal of the list margin. So let's import that from constants. And we're doing that because, as you can see here, this is consistent with the list margin, but the actual header part takes up the whole screen. So let's add that style real quick. So style equals margin horizontal, and we'll assign that to list margin. And one thing that I noticed is that our status bar is white. It isn't showing like this. So let's add a status bar in our screen component. So just import status bar from React Native and then add that into the safe area view. And then for the bar style, we're going to say Dart content, and that will actually show us this information. So with that done, we can exit out of screen and go back to our animated list header. And within our view, we need to create a touchable opacity component. And let's import that from React Native. And this is going to represent this input. So when the user presses on this input, a new screen will pop up. And to allow for that functionality, that is why we are using a touchable opacity here instead of an input. So let's add an onPress event here. and just log something to the console. Say navigate to search screen, or navigate to input screen. Within this, we need to add some styles. We need to add this magnify icon and then also some text. So let's do that real quickly. I'll go material community icons. We'll import that. We'll say name is equal to magnify. The color is going to be equal to theme, and then it's going to be color dash primary dash 500, and we need to import theme, so do that. And now we need the size, which is going to be equal to, let's go with 28. Now next to that, let's add some text here. We'll say text, and we need to import that from UIKitten. Okay, and we'll just say find a location. All right, now one important thing is that we need to make this a row, so we'll use our row component here. Make this real easy. And did that, okay, that did auto import. And then for this, we will just say our style needs to be equal to line items and assign center to that. Okay, now we need to add a top margin to our touchable opacity. So style, I'm going to say margin top, and it's going to actually depend on which platform you're on. So let's say if the platform is equal to iOS, then we'll say 50, else 30. Oh, platform.os. All right, so now let's add this border around the touchable opacity. So we're going to go border width will be 1. Border color is going to be the text, the hex code of D3, D3, D3. Border radius will be 30. And we need to add some padding. So padding will be 10. Now that's looking pretty good, and we just need to add some margin to our text here. And we'll give it a margin left of 10. So this is what it looks like now. So now let's get started in creating this flat list of buttons. What we first need to do is import flat list from React Native, and then we'll implement it underneath our touchable opacity here. Say flat list. And what this is going to display are buttons. So we need to create an array with the button metadata. So let's create an array and call it filter buttons. And each one of these objects within the array will either have an icon name or a label, and then all of them will have an onPress event. So here we'll go with icon name, and we'll set this one to filter dash variant. I believe that's what it's called, which will look like this. Yep. And that's going to be a material community icon. So for this, we'll say onPress, and we'll assign that a function where we just log something to the console. We'll say filter all. Okay, next thing, we'll just copy and paste this, and instead of this icon name, we'll change this to label, and we'll say price, and that will represent this button. We'll just say price. And now we can start copy and pasting this. And let's change price here to say move in date. Change this to say pets. And that's all that we're going to be doing for this tutorial. But let's go back down to our flat list and put those in for the data. We'll say data is going to be equal to filter buttons. Our key extractor can be the index here. And we are going to render out some buttons. So render item, comma, index, and we'll say if. So if the icon name exists, so item dot icon, we will return a button from UI kitten. And we'll give this an appearance of ghost, a style, which has a border radius of 30, a border color of hashtag D3, and since we use this multiple times, I decided to just copy this and put it in our theme file. So I called this color-gray, and then to find all instances of that, I press Shift and Control F, and then searched for D3, and any place that this existed, I would just change it to theme color-gray. Now we want to say onPress is equal to item.onPress, and accessory left is going to be equal to material community icons. Name is going to be equal to item.name or item.icon name as any. The size is going to be equal to 20, and the color is going to be equal to our primary theme color. So theme color dash primary dash 500. Now let's close that out. All right. Okay, with that done, let's return whenever we don't have this icon name. So down here, we'll say return button, and the styles will be the same. So let's just create a style sheet right now. Called styles equals style sheet dot create, and I need to import that. Thought that would auto import, but I guess not. And we'll say styles dot button is what these have. So let's copy this, say button here, and paste it there. Then say styles dot button, and style equal styles dot button. OnPress is going to be the same, where we have item dot onPress. The only differing thing will be the text that the button displays. So here we'll have item.label, and we need to say that the appearance is ghost. Appearance equals ghost. And we need to set the flat list to horizontal, so just say horizontal shows horizontal scroll indicator is false. We just have to change the style on this top button. We'll set the width to 50. So width will be, actually we'll set it to 48. And that will make it circular. The next thing we have to do is just add some top margin here. So margin top will be 10. And for each button, let's add a horizontal margin of 3. Margin horizontal will be 3. So this is what our component now looks like. So now let's get started on this section of the header. We need to escape out of this view and create a divider. And I'm importing that from UI Kitten. And then we need to give this a style which has a background color equal to our theme and color dash gray. And we actually need to give our flat list a margin vertical of 10. And that's looking better. So close up this view again and let's create another view, or rather we can create a row here. And this row is going to consist of 2 rows. The first row being this, and then the second row being this. And we are going to justify these with space between. So let's do that real quickly. Style equals align items will be center, and justify content will be space between. Next, between this row, we are going to have a material community icon, some text, and then a button or a touchable opacity here. So let's create that. Let's go material community icons. Name is going to be equal to, the name will be map marker. So let's put that in there. Map dash marker. Size is going to be 18. And color will be the primary theme color. Primary dash 500. Next to that, we're going to have text, but for right now, we'll just say that 12 locations available. And we need to give this a new category, C1. And to make the text gray, we need to say appearance equals hint. And I'm going to wrap this in brackets just to be consistent with that. One thing I noticed is that we need to add our horizontal margins to this new view that we created, this new row, the outermost row that is. And we also need to give it a vertical margin of 5. And let's get rid of this locations actually. So 12 available. All right, so next to that, we will create a touchable opacity component. And we'll just say on press and log to the console. Save. Okay, within this touchable opacity, we need to create a text component. The category for this will be C1. So we're going to have a couple different styles for this. The first one is going to be a color. So the color is going to be color-info-300. And we're going to say save. And the next style is going to be font weight of bold. Now let's give this a left margin of 10. So let's start developing on the other row. And for this, we just need 2 of what we just created here, these touchable opacities. So I'm just going to copy these over and paste them down below. It's just that here we need to add some material icons. So material community icons. For the first one, we need to make it sort. So that's actually the name of the component. So here we'll say name is sort. Color is equal to theme color-info -300. And the size is equal to 18. Here we'll say sort and sort. And we can wrap this stuff in a row as well. And then say style is equal to align items center. And let's actually just copy and paste this for the second one and get rid of this. And for this, we'll have map-outline. And for the text, we'll say map. And the margin left should be a little bit different for these ones. So let's change that on the text components. Let's set that to 5. And then on this last row, within this last touchable opacity, we can say that the margin left is 20 to space out. All right, so let's go and check out what that actually looks like. So these are the two comparisons, what we've created and what it actually looks like on their app. I think we're doing a pretty good job. Now we just need to refactor this code and split out the components. And then after that, we can actually start to implement the map. So in our refactor here, let's just get started by placing this into the styles. We'll say container and put all those styles there. Then we can say styles dot container, comma. Now within this view, we've got two different things that I'm thinking we can factor out to their own components. The first one being this touchable opacity. I'm thinking that we can call this header input. So I'm just going to copy or cut that, go out to here, create a new component called header input.tsx, export const header input, return, and then paste that in. Now we just need to import touchable opacity from React Native, platform from React Native, platform, and style sheet. Then we need to import text from UIKitten. Beneath that, let's import material community icons. And last but not least, let's import theme and row. So theme, import row. Here we'll go const styles equals style sheet dot create container, and this is the container, so we'll cut, paste, say styles.container. And then let's give this its own style here, say styles.text. Then let's add this back here, say header input. And we'll probably have to pass something into this later, but for right now, it's fine. Now for this flat list, we can do our own thing here. I'm thinking we call these filter buttons, header filter buttons. Header filter buttons .tsx, export const header filter buttons. Return that component. Now let's import flat list and get those filter buttons. Well, that filter buttons array. So get this, paste it in here. Now let's import button from UI kitten. And then let's copy those styles that we created prior. So just copy this over, and then we can get rid of button here. Paste, and we can get rid of container here, and we just need to import style sheet and theme. And we also need to import material community icons. And I'm going to move this up one. Now here we can just say header filter buttons. And for this style, we can create a new style down below. We'll call it default margin horizontal. Say styles dot default margin horizontal, and eventually we can add that here. For this divider, we can copy this or cut it, say styles dot divider, create this divider. Now for this bottom row, we can cut this and create another component. I'm going to call it header logistics, logistics.tsx, export const header logistics. And let's return that. Import row. Import material community icons. Import text from UI kitten. Import touchable opacity. And we also need to import list margin. And import style sheet. Say const styles equals style sheet dot create container, where container is just this. And for every row, it looks like we're just assigning align items to center. So we can just say style or row here. Yeah, align items, center. Okay, so anytime that we have align items to center, we can just change that to row now, and it's a row. Also, one thing I did change within our row component is that this is now optional, and for view style, we just have to add an array so that it doesn't complain. Now let's change this to say styles.row, and same thing up here. And same thing here. Alright, I do notice that we're reusing components here. These are the same thing, so we can create our own component, and this one's really going to be only applicable to this screen, or really this component. So let's just create it locally here above this. We'll call it header logistics button. And once we get this created, then we can put it in its own file. It will just be easier to create right here. So return, and let's return this, one of these guys. So we need to import theme. Import theme. Let's get rid of this and say style, where style can be optional, but any, and we'll just say style here. We're going to need an onPress event, and that's going to be a void function. We're also going to need an icon name, which will be optional. And that can be string. Okay, that's going to complain. So let's just say that icon name is going to be any. And for text, we are going to, for certain, need a label, which that will be a string. Label. Let's save that. Okay, let's change here to label. And let's change this so that we're only rendering our icon if we actually have an icon name. So icon name, question mark, else we'll return null. And for this, let's go ahead and, well, I guess we can just keep this in our header logistics because it really only pertains to this component. And we could say a logistics button text. Styles.logistics button text. Okay. Very cool. And let's change this to say onPress. Now here we can just comment this stuff out. And say header logistics button, where we have a label of sort, and onPress of this. Icon name is going to equal sort. and no other styles. So that's going to be 1. And the next is going to be a header logistics button. Label is map. On press will be the same here, just say map. Icon name is going to equal map-outline. And then I think this had a style equal to margin left of 20. Yeah, it did. Okay. And here we have the same thing. So let's just comment this out and say header logistics button, label, save, on press, console.log, save, no icon. Maybe we'll add some styles here of margin left. Now let's go back to our animated list and say header logistics, import that. Now let's save. That was a successful refactor, so let's go back into header logistics and get rid of our commented code. Now with that done, whenever the header logistics map button gets pressed, we now want to show a map on the search screen. So let's go ahead and implement that functionality. So for our map, we're going to be using a component library called React Native Maps. To install this, go to your terminal and run Expo install React Native Maps. And once you finally got that installed, go to your search screen. We're going to import it here as map view from React Native Maps. And let's just comment out our flat list for right now. And I actually copied and pasted what we needed. We're going to need to import view from React Native. And then we already have map view. We're just getting type errors. So we just need to give the container a overflow of hidden and a flex of 1, and then give our map view a height and width of 100%. And let's go and check it out. And this is what it looks like currently. So the map view does work. We just now need to add some state so that whenever we press on this map button, this button actually changes and we get taken to this screen. So let's implement that right now. Let's create a new state called map shown and set map shown. And it's going to be a Boolean. And we're going to initialize it to false. Now here we'll say map shown question mark, and we'll display this. Otherwise, we will display the flat list, well, the animated flat list. So let's uncomment this code out and move it up. So we're going to need to pass in map shown and set map shown into our animated list header. So let's do that. Set map shown. And map shown. And then in our animated list header component, let's add these as props. So Control P, animated list header. Set map shown. and map shown. So map shown is going to be a Boolean value. And set map shown will be a void function. Now in our header logistics, we need to pass those in. So let's just copy from over here. Okay, what's this saying? Okay, we need to actually pass something into here. So bool be a Boolean. That should be good. Okay. Yeah, so let's just copy this stuff and paste it into header logistics. Then copy this stuff and pull up header logistics. Well, let's save this first. Header logistics. Okay, and the header logistics, let's create new props and paste those in. So map shown, and set map shown. All right, and then for the map, here we go. We'll say map shown, question mark, else. And for the else, that's where we actually want to say, do you want to see the map? So we'll paste what we have there. Otherwise, we can just copy this and we will say list for the label, and then our icon is going to be a format list bulleted. For both of these functions here, we can create a new function saying handle map click or handle map press. And that's going to be, and we'll say if map shown is true, then we need to set map shown to false. And we can just return here. And then if that's not the case, we'll just say set map shown is true. And then down here, we'll say handle map press for both of these. And let's go and test it out. So this is what it now looks like whenever you press on the list in map. Brings up the map, vice versa, brings up the list. So that is working as intended. In the next episode, we will go over how to display these properties on this map and get that functionality working. So if you want to see that, stay tuned for the next episode, and thank you for watching.